Hey kids, welcome back. Today's lesson is pretty heavy, so take this time to get a calculator out and a pencil. It's going to help you as we go along, if you follow along. Guess I'll give you a second. Well, you can just pause and rewind it, whatever. So today's lesson is all about finding a total amount if you're given a partial percentage and a partial amount. Like, if 10% of something is 30, how are we going to know what the whole amount is? This is obviously different from what we did last week, because last week we were trying to figure out what a percent of something equals if we're given the total amount. Know what I mean? This time we're given a partial percentage and a partial amount, and we want to find what the total amount is. So if 10% of something is 30, how can we find what 100% is? The first step that we're going to do is figure out what 1% is if we know that 10% is 30. The way to do that is kind of similar to algebra, because we're going to be doing something on both sides. You want to first set up your page just like this. Write the percent you're given, then write 1%, then write 100%. It'll help you kind of visualize what it is we have to do here. So if 10% is 30, what is 1% going to be? The way we got from 10 down to 1 is we divided it by 10. So since we divided this by 10, we're also going to divide this by 10. 30 divided by 10 is 3. 10 divided by 10 is 1. So we know that 1% is going to be 3 because these are all related. If 10% is 30, 1% is 3. Now that we have this step done, we're going to find, if we're given 1%, we know what that is now, we can easily find what 100% is going to be. If 1% is 3, what do you think 100% is going to be? We would very simply multiply this by 100, which means we times this by 100. 1 times 100 is 100. 3 times 100 is 300. So if 10% of something is 30, 100% of it will be 300. What if we have some numbers which aren't quite as easy to see as 10 and 30 and 300? If 14% of something is 21, what is 100% of something going to be? We got from 14 down to 1 by dividing by 14. Which means we'll divide this 21 by 14 as well. 21 divided by 14 is 1.5. So if 1% is 1.5, what will 100% be? Just like we did up here and over there, we're going to times this by 100. 1 times 100 equals 100. 1.5 times 100, we have to do the same thing, is going to be 150. So to sum up, if 14% of something is 21, 100% of that will be 150. Last one over here, what if 150%, whoa, we're over 100 now. If 150% is 36, what is 100% going to be? Obviously, you know it's going to be lower because 100 is lower than 150. So first find your 1%, which we'll get by dividing by 150. Same thing over here. 36 divided by 150 is 0.24. If 1% is 0.24, we can kind of already figure out what 100% will be. We're going to multiply this by 100, which means multiply this by 100. And you get a nice even 24. If 150% of something is 36, 100% of it will be 24. Let's check out some word problems. Okay, 74% of all Hillcrest students visit the village at least once a week. This is 437 students. How many total students are there at Hillcrest now? So set up your page just like we saw in the last example. 74% equals 437. We want to know how many total students there are. In other words, 100%. To get there, we're going to find the 1%. How do I get from 74 down to 1? Divide by 74, which means we divide this by 74 as well. And we get 5.90. If 1% is 5.90, we can easily see that 100% is going to be 590. This means that there are 590 total students at Hillcrest. Let's try one more. All right, I used some bigger numbers for this one here. If 29% of Spotify users are from North America, this is a 2019 figure, by the way. If 29% of Spotify users are from North America, and that is 62,930,000, how many Spotify users are there worldwide? Set up your page just like we saw. So 29% equals 62,930,000. We want to know the total amount of Spotify users worldwide. In other words, 100%. We don't know. And the way to get there is to find the 1%. So how do I get from 29 to 1? Divide by 29, which means we divide this by 29 as well. 62,930,000 divided by 29 equals 2,170,000 divided by 29. If this number is just 1% of the total amount of users worldwide, how can we find how many users Spotify actually has? To get from here to here, we times by 100. So to get from here to here, we'll times it by 100. 2,170,000 times 100 equals a giant number. Basically gonna add 2 zeros. So 2, 1, 7, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 217 million Spotify users worldwide, which is a lot more than I thought. That is how we find a total amount of something if we're given a partial percentage and a partial amount. The next thing we have to talk about for today, there's 2 things for today, is finding percent change. How to find out how much percent of something has changed, either increasing or decreasing. So let's start with a really, really basic one. If you have a cup of water, actually let's say something bigger, like a jug of water. Okay, jug of water. At one point it had 30 liters of water. Some of it spilled out. It now has, let's say, 25 liters of water. we want to know what percent of the water has been spilled out. The way to do that is a very simple formula. I know you guys are probably tired of formulas by now, but get used to it. The formula is called change over original. You find how much has changed and you divide it by the original amount. This will give you a decimal and you multiply that by 100. So how much has changed here? We started with 30, now we have 25 liters. There is a change of 5 liters. That's going to be your top part. Your bottom part is the original. How much did we start out with? We started out with 30 liters. 5 divided by 30. Okay, so 5 divided by 30 equals 0.166666. Repeat it. 0.167. This is a decimal. Remember, we want percent change. So times that by 100, that equals 16.67% change. In other words, there's been a 16.67% decrease in this jug of water. Change over original, you get a decimal, times it by 100 to find your percent. Check out the worksheet I made for that too, and the notes for some more clear directions. But first, some word problems. Okay, so I like my food pretty spicy. The amount of sauce in a hot sauce bottle was at the start 340 milliliters. After I used it on my pasta, there's 200 milliliters left. What is the percent decrease after I used it? So, change over original. This will get you your answer. How much has changed in this? If we started with 340 and we now have 200. The change equals 340 minus 200. There's been a change of 140 milliliters. That's our top part, that's our change. What was the original? How much did we start with? How much was in that bottle before I doused it on my pasta? 140 over the original, 340. 140 divided by 340 equals 0.41. Again, we want this as a percent, so I'll times this by 100. That equals 41%. Can somebody use this in a sentence for the word problem? There is 41% less hot sauce in the bottle. Or I used 41% of the bottle on my pasta. So if we were to write some steps for this, step 1 would be find change, and then divide it by the original. That gives you a decimal, and then of course you you multiply your decimal by 100. To find a percent increase or decrease. Okay, last one for today. In 2005, a long time ago, the price of a McChicken meal was $4.27. Now here in 2020, it's $10.87 after taxes. How much percent has this meal gone up in the last 15 years? Step one, find the change and then divide it by the original. So what's the change from now compared to back then? 1087 minus 427. What is that? $6.60. This is our change. There's a change of $6.60 in the two prices here, here, and here. So change is $6.60. That is our top number, our change. What's our original? What did it start out at? It started at $4.27. $6.60 divided by $4.27 equals 1.55. Does this mean that it's only gone up by 1.55%? No, that doesn't really make sense. This looks like a lot more than 1.5%. We forgot to multiply our decimal by 100. This amount times 100 equals 155%. The price of a McChicken meal has gone up 155% over the last 15 years. I realize that was a lot of information, 2 new topics for today. Please check out the notes sheet that I made and make sure you're doing the homework daily to keep up. There's gonna be something to hand in on Thursday, so get ready for that. And after the last video, some people were saying they wanted to see what the classroom looks like, so check it out. Nothing much going on here, exactly as you left it. Except some of the work's been taken down. Go on the back table over there. That's it for me. See you guys on Teams.